Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, aka the Beard of Blofeld. I'm excited today. I have a guest that has truly been monumental in my James Bond fandom, if you will. And I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous today because this guy actually got me into literary Bond. And without further ado, I'm just going to bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, Raymond Benson.
Hello, everybody, and hello, Chris.
Good to have you, man. So famed award-winning author James Bond, you've got over 40 books under your belt. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for doing this.
Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so Raymond is actually here to talk about his all-new Felix Leiter adventure, The Hook and the Eye. Now, before we get into that, rumor has it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're a pretty big prog rock fan. Am I correct on saying that?
Yeah, I think I've been into that since we knew what prog rock was. Well, I'm of the age where I was discovering progressive rock, as a teenager, back in the late 60s, early 70s, uh, before even that term progressive rock was even a term. I think, journalists invented that term, and the musicians themselves just kind of went, okay, if you want to call us that, but, we're not going to call us that. Uh, some of the mainstream ones were who I, of course, heard first, like Jethro Tull and Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and King Crimson and the Moody Blues, that I would even call, um, some of the psychedelic Beatles stuff progressive rock. Sergeant Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, that's progressive rock. Revolver is progressive rock. The early Pink Floyd, was in Soft Machine, where the originators of all this stuff. Frank
Right.
Zappa, even early Frank Zappa.
Yes.
Um, and then there's more modern stuff like Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson, and always been it. But I love all kinds of music. I mean, I'm a big movie music fan. I love film scores. I collect
Yes.
film scores. I like jazz. I like pop. I like there's all kinds of stuff I like.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like, when I was curating this interview, I put on Pink Floyd Pulse, their live show. You can watch it on
All
YouTube
right.
now. Great show. And it just kind of got me thinking a little bit because I know in 2009 you actually released a book, Dark Side of the Morgue, which was actually nominated for the Seamus Award. And
It
I was
was.
like, okay, clearly he likes Pink Floyd.
Well, I do. I wouldn't put them up there with in my top 10 favorites probably, but I like them a lot. I have all their albums. Um, Jethro Tull is probably the the number one prog act that I'm the closest to. But I wrote a book about Jethro Tull, a biography of the band. So I got to know them, and I got to know Ian Anderson, and we were friends for a good 20 years. I would see him every time he came to Chicago. But uh, I was into Jethro Tull from very early on.
We kind of talked a little bit when you came on. I said, you were my introduction into literary Bond. I mean, I've got my book here, Facts of Death. My first Bond novel actually took me back into Fleming, took me back into Gardner, and of course, moving into the future with all of the newer authors, including Kim Sherwood. In 1995, you were actually selected and commissioned to pen 6 of the original, Bond novels. You've continued to write your own original novels, including, the Black Stiletto saga. And again, you've written over 40 books to date. So quite a big catalog you built here. Did you have a favorite?
Of all my books,
Yeah, was there something that leaned out to you that was just like
oh
it really kind of said,
gee,
I know.
uh, I mean
Big
that's like
question.
choosing between children. Um, I mean, I love my Bonds. I love the new Felix Leiter book. I think it's among my best. But the Black Stiletto, the 5 book serial, I often cite that as my magnum opus because it's very personal and it's some of my best work, I think.
Hmm.
And it's done very well. It's it's been optioned. It hasn't been Nothing's been made, but it's been optioned. Um, some of my more recent standalones, like the Mad Mad Murders of Marigold Way
Yes,
and Blues in the Dark, I think are pretty strong as well.
I would agree. Yeah, the Black Stiletto. I haven't read all of them, but I got through a couple of them, and I got to tell you, I really enjoy the character. I love the era that it's set in, and I feel like the Hook in the Eye is in a similar vein.
Well, certainly a period piece.
Yes.
It takes place almost not quite 10 years earlier, but it does. I mean, it also shares a New York City location
Yes.
for at least a third of the book of The Hook in the Eye. It moves away from New York in the second act and third act.
So after your massive success with the James Bond bedside companion, was there a moment for you that felt like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in life? Like you had that I'm really on my way now kind of moment or feeling?
Actually, no. It was it right after the bedside companion. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do because before the bedside companion, I was a theater person. I was in New York. I was directing stage productions, musicals and plays, and I was also a composer. I'm a musician too, and I was composing music for theatrical productions, and I was doing a lot of this off Broadway, one off Broadway show, um, and after the bedside companion came out, it kind of opened some doors uh, that I didn't know. Is that the way I want to go, or should I continue doing theater? But then this one door opened about games, writing games.
Yes.
At first I thought, well, gee, I'm a writer now. I never thought I'd be a writer. Didn't plan on that. But here I have this book and got a Edgar Allan Poe nomination and all that. And so suddenly I'm a member of Mystery Writers of America. So gee, maybe I should write mysteries or thrillers or try to write fiction, because I never had up to that point. But suddenly I kind of fell into this job designing and writing some computer games. Uh, Basically writing the storyline of adventure-based games where the player is basically the protagonist of a story, moving through it and solving puzzles, and it tells the story as you go along.
Mhm.
And two of those early games were James Bond titles. The company I was working for had the license for two Bond titles as well as a Stephen King novella, and so I kind of cut my teeth in computer games on those. And so doing those games propelled me without me pushing toward that into into a profession of writing and designing computer games. And for the next 10 years, that's what I did. In fact, I worked for some major companies. I moved around the country after that. We left New York in 1990, and I worked for Origin for a while. I did Ultima 7, the Black Gate, and then I worked for Microprose, and it was a computer gaming job that brought me to where I am now, outside the Chicago area, and that's where I was in a creative day job when I got the call from what was then called Glidrose Publications. Now it's called Ian Fleming Publications, and that was 1995. I was actually working in a computer gaming company when that happened.
So that was a pretty big jump then. I mean, storytelling still, but completely different medium.
I had tried my hand at writing a mystery novel in the late 1980s, and I had actually shown it to Peter Jansen Smith, who was the chairman of Glidrose Publications, Ian Fleming Publications, and he was also Ian Fleming's literary agent at the time, back in the
Mm.
day. So he was the one in control of all the literary stuff. I got to know him when I was researching the James Bond Bedside Companion, and so
Mm.
he liked it, apparently the book when it came out, and we stayed in touch. And so I showed it to him. I asked, "Would you read my first novel?" And he did, and he gave me some nice comments about it and some suggestions. But he kind of agreed with me that um, it had to go into a drawer and it was the proverbial first novel. So that's where it stayed.
Oh
And
no.
but he saw that I could start a novel and, more importantly, finish one. So he had that in the back of his mind. And then I was doing all these computer games, and they were story based. I was creating all these big, complicated plots with, one main storyline, but also all these alternative paths that a player could go on. So,
Okay.
a script for one of my games was like a New York City phone book,
Oh
very
wow.
thick. Yeah.
Wow.
And this included dialogue with characters that you would talk to and things like that. So he saw that I was honing fiction writing, doing that.
Yeah.
And that combined with he knew that I knew my way around James Bond, the universe. I knew the books and I knew
Right.
the movies, and so he took a chance and asked me if I wanted to take over from John Gardner when John decided he didn't want to do it anymore.
When it didn't seem, I feel like from the fans perspective, like there was much of a lull when Gardner stepped away. It was almost like you were right in there. But now we learn, well, that had been he'd been sitting on that.
Well, he these books are almost they're begun at least a year and a half before publication. So
Right.
in 1995, John had been writing his last book, which was
Mhm.
published in 96. He probably wrote it in 94,
Mhm.
and it was being edited and going through the publication process in 95 so that it could come out in the spring of 1996, which is when it did. In order to keep the momentum going, at that time, that was the publication strategy of Glidrose Publications, was to
Right.
keep a bond, at least one bond book a year.
Mhm.
So he wanted somebody in line in place to start. And so I had to start writing. I mean, I was asked in early November of 1995. So I started writing the Zero Minus 10 that month. And, I wrote it mostly over the next spring and summer of 96 and turned it in like August, September of 96. Went through the editing process so that it was published in the spring of 1997.
Yeah.
Of course, by then I'd already started The Facts of Death. So it was kind of like a factory kind of process.
No, yeah, and that's kind of what I gathered from talking with Kim Sherwood and other authors over the years, that there is an overlap. While one is being wrapped, the other one is being started.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the choice for fans was so like seamless. We felt like it was like Gardner, 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 and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Benson. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, he's done the Bedtime Companion. This is a perfect fit. I know a lot of us were really glad to see you kind of join the collection of great authors that have penned for James Bond over the years, man.
Well, I'm still pinching myself. It was, I don't take it for granted. I'm very gratified that I was asked. I couldn't believe I was asked. It's pretty extraordinary when you think about it, since I'd never published a novel, and suddenly here's my first novel published worldwide, and it's one of the James Bond novels. So yeah, it was an unorthodox entry into publishing, for sure.
It's like, and trial by fire. Here you go. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it was scary too. Big shoes to fill, not only, Ian Fleming's, but Kingsley Amis and John Gardner too.
Yeah.
And even John Pearson and Christopher Wood. Um, so yeah, I mean, we all feel like we're part of a family, all the authors. It's
Right.
it's we all have a mutual respect. At one time, we all would say more people had walked on the moon than had written James Bond novels. I don't now. I'm not sure if that's the case. I can't
you
remember.
got you got to say it though. You got to say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's great. Well, I know back in 2002, that was the last time that you crafted a 007 adventure.
Right.
Tell me, after 23 years away from this ever growing world, what was it like to kind of get behind the wheel, throttle down with Felix Leiter in The Hook in the Eye?
Well, I'd always wanted to do Felix. I've always loved Felix and had an affinity for him because he's a Texan and I'm a Texan. I was originally raised in Texas and grew up in Texas. And in the Fleming books, he was such an enjoyable character. He was so buoyant and jovial and upbeat and kind of a joker. And
Mhm.
we never really saw Fleming's Felix in the movies.
Mhm.
I mean, there were fine actors playing Felix in the movies, but we never saw him, for example, with a prosthesis in the films, which I
Right. I
think
never
is a
understood that.
yeah. And all the Felixes in the movies were very different, and they all had sort of a different tone, and they approached it differently. And a lot of them were very serious, and they were never this sort of jokey. Come on, let's go drinking, James. Let's go up to Harlem and have a good time and while we're investigating, and let's
Right.
eat this food. This food is going to be great. I want you to order this and this and this and this. You'll love it. He was that kind of guy, he was kind of a goofball, but a very capable one and
Yes.
smart one. He was more than just in the books, he was more than just a second banana. And I wanted to give him, a more depth and background and give him his own adventure because what was he doing while Bond was off doing all these other adventures? I mean, if he was either in the CIA or in Pinkerton's detective agency, he was doing something. He was having his own adventures, so why not let's see one.
So I'm glad to see that you're diving in and tackling this character because nobody's really ever given him kind of his due rights. I mean, Kim touches on him a little bit, and I like how she added in some things, but I'm excited to see just after reading the first kind of chapter release of this book, I'm excited to see where you take him.
My approach to the whole thing was, what if Ian Fleming had somehow magically developed an American voice and decided to write a Felix Leiter adventure while he was writing Moonraker, in between Live and Let Die and Diamonds Are Forever. And so that's what this would be. So it's, everything in it does not contradict Fleming at all. I mean, it's all the cues from Fleming are in this book, but then I expand on them. I give Felix, which you will see in later episodes as they drop, some more of his backstory and things that I was able to invent.
Love that. So we as fans can look at this as in the timeline falling directly after Moonraker.
Actually, before
Prior to
it's directly after Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die. Got
It takes place during the 10-month period after Felix has the mishap with the shark.
Okay. All right. Great. Great. And that's the kind of stuff I love because I know Anthony Horowitz did that where he basically wrote a sequel to Goldfinger. And right. For anybody who doesn't know what that book is, shame on you. But if you know the name of it, leave a comment down below. Somebody will find that. Exactly. Don't you give it away. All right. So now currently, The Hook in the Eye, this ebook is being released as a sequential 10-episode series. With new episodes being released every 2 weeks, this story will be complete as of September 30th of this year. And then the paperback's going to release sometime in October. Is that pretty safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that a choice of you to release this as an ebook, as almost like a build-up, like a episodic kind of thing to grow?
This was a mutual discussion with Ian Fleming Publications. They wanted to do something like a serial to hopefully attract more people to their website. And I guess they felt that a period Felix Leiter novel sort of that's kind of harks back to the classic noir pulp novels of the 50s, um, that would be a suitable, you know, it would be suitable material to do this with.
Yeah.
So, I went along with it. I'm fine with it. Surely it is an experimental thing for them and me. we'll see how it goes. And you know, we're loading the whole summer with extra value content. uh, with you know, like yesterday, a video dropped of me talking about the episode, you know, sort of a
Yes.
unpacking the episode kind of video called Hooked on Lighter. And we're going to do that the week following each episode.
Yep.
So just like when you're watching a Netflix series or a, you know, a streaming show on Hulu or something, sometimes after the episode, there'll be a little 5 minute, you know, unpacking the episode kind of thing where the actors or the filmmakers are talking about that episode you just saw.
Yes.
That was the idea behind doing this. And then there's going to be some other stuff, like some printed stuff on their website, like some essays about Felix and things like that.
Okay. Now, those videos, are those going to be on IFP's YouTube, on their website? Where can they find them?
On the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Directly
In
on them.
fact, the first one's on there as of yesterday.
Okay. Great. All right. So, guys, make sure you check that out. I'm going to go watch that right after this, actually, because I didn't know that dropped last night. So I'll go check that out for sure. Thank you for letting us know about that, because we do love that as fans. That extra little bonus, little sprinkle of like the why, the reasoning, like the where the creativity came from. Those are all the fun things that fans like to learn about from the creators. So fantastic. Glad to see you're doing something like that. All right. So I've got a tough one for you. This is my final question here. And I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to ask you this, since I have you
Okay.
for a little bit.
All right.
So I know. You should be concerned. So your name has been a remaining just respected presence within the Bond community, most notably with the successful re-release of 0-10 paperback, you know, and then now the excitement surrounding the new story with Felix and the hook in the eye. Given this renewed momentum, Raymond Benson, please tell us, is this setting the stage for your return to pen a mainline set of James Bond adventures?
Not that I know of. Uh, uh, no. I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
If the call came through, would you entertain it?
I would entertain it, but you know, I'm much older. I'm slowing down. I'm I'm enjoying writing Felix. I mean, if I had a chance to do another Felix, I might do that. So
Okay.
my career as a writer has been very enjoyable. I've done a lot of different types of things. I mean, I've stayed in the mystery and thriller genre pretty much. And I have done other tie-in things, like you mentioned Splinter Cell earlier. I did that in the mid 2000s. I did a couple of those. I did Metal Gear Solid, you know, a couple of books on that. There's been some other tie-ins, and I've actually done some ghostwriting that I can't really talk about because, you know, of NDAs and stuff. But
Right.
some of that was very rewarding and lucrative, and you know, a good thing for a writer to do. Um, you know, as long as you're, you know, making a living writing, I think that's a major thing.
Yes.
Um, Not everybody gets to do that,
No.
that wants to be a writer. So I feel very fortunate. I feel, and I'm grateful to, you know, the various editors and publishers and agents and that have helped me along the way. Um, Again, I don't take it for granted.
That's great, man. Trust me, I've talked to so many people, and your name constantly comes up as a positive addition to the Bond verse, if you will. And so we're really thankful to have you. Glad to see you back with Felix. Looking forward to continuing this adventure. Hopefully, we get another book. I'm going to fingers crossed, because I already know just from all of your previous writing styles that this is going to be something that I fall in love with. So thank you. Thank you for coming in today. Tell everyone where they can find the book one more time, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, if you go to my website, raymondbenson.com, there's always links to, you know, all my books as well as the new Felix book. But ianfleming.com is, you know, the main where the action is. for all the Felix stuff. So by all means, go to ianfleming.com. And I'm all over Facebook. I have a personal page as well as an author page, and then there's other bond sites that I'm sometimes on and things like that. I'm on Blue Sky. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram, although I don't use it that much, but I seem to be more active lately on it. Um, I have a little presence on Threads, so you can find me in a lot of these places.
Okay. And guys, I'm going to leave links down in the description below so you can check those out. Raymond, it's been a pleasure today. Thank you for taking time to come in today. If you guys at home enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. I always appreciate a thumbs up. Hopefully one day, Raymond, we can actually sit down and do this in person.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. You have yourself a great day. Guys, thanks so much for watching. And as always, Merry Christmas, 007.
With you.